let us all do we can to build a better future. All right. So again, shout out to Case Study QB. This is a video that was found on his Twitter page. Dude, I don't know how you sat through corporate media, but with this whole thing with Biden now being sworn in, he's our president. There's a thing about everyone going back to brunch. Everyone wants to fall asleep. Mm-hmm. But look, the damages of the Trump administration, as well as the years before Trump, still remain, and there's a lack of trust with corporate media. And let's be real, the establishment media, whether it's Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, I mean, no matter who it is, they have a corporate agenda, and a lot of people can't really trust the media at this point because one side says this, the other side says that. But all in all, at the end of the day, the establishment media only wants to have access with those who have power. And what stories are really being covered? What about stories about political abuse, abuses of power, rampant corruption, environmental dangers, all of that stuff? It's not really being addressed, and that's why we have independent media. But shout out to Glenn Greenwald. I mean, he sat on Fox News to really talk about the damages of the media and its own hypocrisy. Let's play that video.
Journalist and author. Glenn, do you expect this to change at all as Biden's presidency continues?
No, I expect it to get significantly worse. And I have to say, Laura, you really know how to rile up a guest, forcing me to listen to those hideous, grotesque videos in my ear one after the next, right before I'm ready to speak. That was actually quite disgusting. The reason that this is happening, and this is a trend that has been going on for quite some time, and it's not like these journalists don't talk about it or don't know it. They actually talk about it quite a bit. But when they talk about it, the fact that they're losing faith and trust on the part of the public, they do one of three things. Either they complain about it and whine about it like it's so unfair because they're entitled to deference, or they blame their critics. They say the reason this is happening is because people point out our errors and point out that we're engaged in propaganda and not reporting, so it's their fault. And now what they're doing is they're trying to just censor everybody off of the internet, so you essentially have no choice but to listen to the people that these polls show are no longer trustworthy. And I think what everyone is going to see is exactly what that video montage demonstrated, which is people will remember how they conducted themselves during the Trump administration, and they will see the glaring difference, not when there's a difference between the two presidents, but when they're the same. They will treat them wildly differently, and that reaction, that lack of trust, will continue to worsen undoubtedly.
And Glenn, I want to move forward to what I know you're interested in, a topic of the militarization of the Capitol, with the concern that there were going to be marauding bands of hundreds or thousands of angry Americans who were threatening Congress and the inauguration. We found out tonight that our National Guard troops are now sleeping in a garage because they were kicked out of the Capitol. Do you have any doubt that they were treated like props, political props, to get this whole militarization going and scare the people?
Well, so, the argument can be made, well, the only reason why there wasn't an attack on the inauguration is precisely because we militarized. But what about the states, the capitals?
Let's play the second video follow-up.
Man, it's just before you get to the next one, it's real sad because you'll see this a lot. Like, we've seen this with Jimmy as well, where they'll go on Fox News and they'll make a lot of really good points that we would make here on the show. And what do people say? Do they say, man, I'm listening to that. That's a reasonable point, laid out reasonably. I'm going to adjust the way I look at the world based on the facts and logic you've laid out. Or do they say, you went on Fox News, you're now an enemy, you're now right wing, but also forgetting and discounting that Glenn Greenwald doesn't get invited and is blacklisted from MSNBC. He's blacklisted from CNN. So the only place you can actually go to is Fox News, who's obviously playing him from the point of view that they're looking at, which is, oh, this guy is left attacking left, let's have him on, which is, of course, their Fox's thing. But that just because Fox thinks it and Fox is doing that doesn't mean Glenn is. Mm-hmm. And again, the people that he should be on, quote unquote, because we got to pick and choose, aren't letting him on anyway.
Yeah, and another thing, too, I want to address is that, okay, Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, Cornell West have all been on Fox News. So has Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. But also, wait, oh my goodness, I nearly forgot. Pete Buttigieg and Nomiki Konst also showed up on Fox News. Everyone wants to forget that. But, I mean, in this super fast rush of cancel culture and blocking people, I mean, it's starting to get stupid. But did anyone ever bother to think that maybe Glenn Greenwald showing up on Fox News, maybe those viewers are like, he's actually speaking some truth there? Because I'm not willing to write off anyone and say, like, okay, Fox News, it's a platform. And Glenn Greenwald is speaking his mind. If corporate media, especially CNN and MSNBC, are so afraid of Glenn Greenwald, they should have him on. He should be on that show and challenge it out. And I'm guessing something in there is making you laugh as well.
I'm just laughing at Unknown Space Pioneer. But I would love that. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to make Unknown Space Pioneer's comment true. Yeah, Glenn Greenwald, stop listening to Hard Lens Media every day and then taking the best of our talking points and taking them to Fox. I see what you're doing.
Let's play the second follow-up video, because then we got another video that's going to compare and contrast about, because obviously Glenn Greenwald's bringing up the fact that corporate media and these people have been going after Trump for all these years are going to change their tone, and there's still a lack of trust in the establishment media, and rightfully so, because the establishment media has helped perpetuate this neoliberal economic system that we are all in, where we're suffering.
And I also just heard recently, which makes me very upset, that the CPM of mainstream media outlets on YouTube is about 40.
Yeah.
40. How do you do that? Like
coming into our backyard, how dare they?
Like mega million subscriber giant creators get like 12 to 20, and CNN, NBC, and Fox are getting a 40 CPM. That's absurd.
They don't deserve it. Let's play another video from Glenn.
Each state. There was no massive militarization. And you heard a week ago, 10 days ago, leaks from the FBI through ABC News and others claiming, in order to scare people as much as possible, that there were going to be enormous numbers of insurrectionary insurgents or domestic terrorists, which is what they're calling Republicans now, essentially intending to assault state capitals if they couldn't get into Washington. And there was a grand total of one anti-Biden protester, both at the Capitol in Albany and New York and the one in California. So they're constantly now riled up, because no one's going to pay attention if all you're doing is talking about Joe Biden. They want people scared and nervous and acquiescent to the ruling class, and that's why they're kind of spinning these stories.
Your pal Paul Krugman of the New York Times tweeted this out today. So what happened to the insurrection? Maybe I'm jinxing it, but the wave of violence many expected didn't materialize before or on Inauguration Day. There were hardly any demonstrators. Where did all the rage go? Well, Glenn, Krugman's trying to mock Trump supporters, but I don't think he realized what he was actually doing. That either the supposed threat of mass uprisings wasn't a real threat, or that it was exaggerated by an intelligence apparatus that has been known to exaggerate other threats for other ulterior motives.
Laura, the entire goal of the Democratic Party, from starting with Joe Biden, and this isn't me saying this, the Wall Street Journal and others have reported it, is to institute a new war on terror bill that directed outward at foreign actors and foreign governments, but to bring all of those powers inward. Adam Schiff has a bill pending since 2019 that they want to now use a pretext for, which is that America is on the verge of civil war. There's roving bands of insurgents. This is all designed to entrench powers in their hands that we would never otherwise agree that they should have, to surveil people, to monitor people, to infiltrate groups, to break up protests, to criminalize speech. And we have to be extremely vigilant about the role the media is playing in that.
And watch everyone go to sleep.
If the other was called the Patriot Act, which was a total disaster, what will this be called? This will be called the real Patriot Act. We're serious.
Yeah, so again, watch everyone go to brunch. And, channels like us and so many others are going to be heavily criticized by the establishment or by the vote blue no matter who crowd, because we cannot be critical or challenge the Democrats because, oh no, now the orange man is gone. But let's play another video. And go ahead.
Really quickly, just point out to everyone that Trump was, this is what we've been talking about. We haven't talked about it in exactly this format, because when we were talking about it, it was obviously in a different format. Trump is the boogeyman that makes the Democratic Party seem sane. That's the entire strategy. There's no hope. There's no change. There's stagnation. All they're offering is exactly what's already happening, but with a kinder face and nicer words. That's the difference. That's the distinction. Of course, also more military involvement, because why not? And now that Trump is gone, I think to Glenn's point, let's bring that out and like talk about it. Glenn's point is that now they don't have a boogeyman. So the only thing they can think of is now thinking of something else. So you say, okay, now the Capitol's under siege. We need to bring in the National Guard, but we need them so bad we're going to put them in a basement in a parking garage, because why not? And we covered that story that everyone's like, there are going to be roving every single state.
It's going to be Mad Max.
Every single state capital is going to be Mad Max. There's going to be like everyone's going to materialize like cockroaches under a newspaper. It's like one place, and then they're going to like take over the country every state capital time. And then these like, well, yeah, like 2 people did that. And QAnon is pretty much been defeated as an idea. And they saw Biden get elected, and they're like, dang it, didn't work out. So what we're going to start seeing more and more is the media creating stories to keep people scared, because the second that people go, I'm not scared anymore, they're going to start going, Biden, what are you doing for us?
Yep. And so basically creating stories, Daniel, in other words, fake news. Oh, fake news. And that's how it's going to happen. And don't worry, a lot of the people who are part of the resistance are at brunch. And then when Trump runs again in 2024, everyone's going to be panicking and screaming from the rooftop, oh, no, we got to stop him. But let's compare and contrast this video of the establishment media saying how we can rebuild trust again.
Yeah, and sorry, I just want to add one more thing. And on top of this is the other big thing that they're dealing with, is that this is also what we see in a lot of things as well, is that anytime someone disagrees with you, you hit them with a PC argument. You hit them with a demographic argument. You use identity politics against them. So if you disagreed with blue checkmark people on Twitter, well, you're obviously a racist, bigoted Trump supporter, and that's the only deference that we're going to give to you. Block, terrible person, cancel them, or anything of that nature. It's if the mainstream media does something wrong, well, they're not wrong. There are just these liars over here. The problem is that the media now has like 15% approval rate and trustworthiness. So when they say these things, it doesn't matter. And I would like to think that we have let me ask the audience directly. Do you trust the words? And again, we're commentators. We do investigate it, but we're commentators. We're talking about stories other people are doing. Do you trust our takes on the news more than many of the mainstream outlets we get them from? So if we have a CNN article, type 1 if you trust us covering it more on our take, or type 2 if you think CNN, because they originally wrote it, does it best.
Right. They probably got that article from another person who got from another person. Because never forget, Jimmy Dore saw them in 2016. They were all copying and pasting each other's articles, because not original thought is in corporate media's mind. But let's play that next video and hear how mainstream media is saying they're going to rebuild their trust with us.
Is trying to figure out how to rebuild trust in all of our institutions, but particularly in the media after Donald Trump spent so much time attacking the media. And we are also extraordinarily siloed in the way we are getting our information as a country. And, President Biden has talked about this. What are the steps that we need to take to try and regain that trust?
Yeah, really prompting that is some incredible data in Axios AM this morning. This is from the annual Edelman Trust Barometer, which says more than half of Americans have no trust in the media. More than 50% say that reporters actively lie and tell falsehoods in their reporting. And more than half are also saying that reporters are specifically pushing particular ideological agendas. And of course, in many of the things we talked about on this early morning show, there's an incredible partisan divide on that, with up to 60, 70, 80% of Republicans saying that they don't trust the media. I think that speaks very much to the divide and how to sort of regain this hold on truth. I thought it was very interesting what the president said yesterday in his inaugural address about the importance of truth and the importance of fighting against lies. I think that's something very important for journalists to do, and that's something that is struggling with in sort of the cauldron of misinformation on the internet. I mean, look, it's one of the reasons that we founded Axios a little over over 4 years ago to try and be a trustworthy place to cut through all that noise and really get to the truth and facts of the matter. I think it's more so important now with the nation as divided as it is. Remember, more than half of Republicans think the election was rigged. Even more so important for reporters to work even harder to try and bridge that kind of gap and be very sort of calm and clinical in the reporting and rejecting ideological bias.
Well, Nick, I mean, I have actually talked to Republican politicians who privately have been just floored by what they hear at home when they walk into town hall meetings, the ideas that people have from the news sources they're getting. They have basically been appalled by it. It's less about necessarily ideology and more about a simple, complete, really disconnect in terms of just what the basic facts are. And it seems to me Republicans in particular have a struggle to deal with in their ecosystem.
Russiagate.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Like, I read a lot of reader emails. I'm the person who reads everything that comes into our general news inbox.
Can I just really quickly say that I hate to say we told you so many years ago, but we've told you, mainstream media, that if you keep organizing yourself in the way you're doing it, and then pretend that any criticism for actually inaccurate journalism, I'm not even going to talk fake. I'm just going to talk like when you screw up a story. Like, example that I think is a very clear-cut one that had a huge amount of effect on someone's livelihood. It's when Lainey talked about that local restaurant, whose name I forget, who had been around in Chicago for about 50 years. They were not closed. They were fine. And what happened was they canceled their delivery service app, and the people at the local mainstream media news stations didn't ask the restaurant. They didn't even try and call them to verify if this information was correct. They just went and took this random list of like disconnected services through third-party delivery apps, saw their name, and then reported on the TV and on their print journalism. That the restaurant had actually and was in the process of closing, and they would not be taking any reservations. That was a lie. Let's just say, I won't even say lie. That was a falsehood that they didn't actually do any work to correct and actually even research. Because what they could have done, here's a great way, if you're having a business's like livelihood in your hands in a very, very trying time, you go, hello, business in question. Are you still open? Oh, you are? Oh, thank you. Cancel the story. It's not true. They didn't even do that.
Or correct the record.
Correct the record. Yeah. And so eventually when the restaurant was like, this is a fake story, we're not closed. What they did was they didn't do a television correction. They didn't do anything. What they went to is at the bottom of a post that they originally did on the restaurant that was days old, which of course in media terms means no one's reading it anymore. They went at the very bottom. They had a very small like update. None of this article is true. The restaurant's still open. Sadly, because they put that out there, the restaurant closed because no one went to them anymore. No one tried to order from them anymore because word got out that they were closed. And so a 50-year institution is gone in part because the mainstream media, if we screwed up something like that, we wouldn't. But if we did, we would do at the very top of like 2 shows, we'd go, hey, we did some reporting a little bit ago.
And we were wrong.
And we were completely wrong. And you've seen us do that. If you watched us, when we screw something up, we're like, guys, we screwed this up. We thought X was Y. It turns out Y was Z. So we're very sorry. But they don't do that. And just in a very similar way to police brutality and police violence, you can only do that so much before kind of a flurry of everyone doesn't like you. And now they're sitting there going, I don't get it. There's no real reason. We have to teach the people what the real facts are. And the connotation that they give with that is, we know it and we're always right. Also, we don't have any investigative news teams. Yeah. MSNBC doesn't have a one group. Everything is just, as Kit already said, it's click, copy, paste. Some local person writes a story, someone else picks it up, then someone else picks it up, which is how they do it because 6 companies own 92% of media.
There's a little bit more to this.
And then they call their budgets.
There's a little bit more to this. And because the last part of the video is only 20 seconds long, so there's no need to play that fade. So I'll just close it off with this. There is going to be an overwhelming amount of arrogance that you're going to see from corporate media now that Trump is no longer in office because, hey, they finally beat the orange man. The boogeyman is gone. But see, the problems that created Trump are still here. And Trump being censored off of social media, I think everyone needs to remember this. He's off all these social media platforms, so that means we have no idea what he's really doing. Now, I'm not expecting Trump to be playing a high-level game of chess. Okay,
He's checkers. He's a checkers guy.
all right. Well, no, it doesn't matter. But the thing is,
just wants
we
to
don't know.
king
Here's
the-
the thing. We don't know.
Yes.
And the super fast rush of censoring and canceling people who are going to be critical of the Democratic administration and critical of corporate media. The thing is, you're going to be putting people more and more into these bubbles, these echo chambers. And this is something that's going to be detrimental towards journalism as a whole. So the fact that Glenn Greenwald went on Fox News to say, like, hey, heads up, it's going to get bad.
Yeah.
And if we don't stop this now, if the media, if journalism doesn't go back to its roots and starts really being critical of the Democratic administration, we are going to see some more problems further on down the road. Last note on this. We're still waiting for our stimulus checks. We're not getting Medicare for all. And it turns out now that even the vaccination process is going to take much longer than we all expected. Now, look, Trump created a disaster. He created a mess. There's no argument here. We agree. But the Democrats and their excuse and lackluster of action is going to be hurting a lot of people, and it's up to independent media to call out the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment. But we should move
really
on.
quick
Yeah,
before
go
we go
ahead,
on,
go
one
ahead.
more thing to say. The other problem on top of this is, because they are corporations and the bottom line is what matters to them.
Yeah.
When they go after places like us, other places, and they talk about internet media, what they really mean, and Glenn pulled this out, and I think this is something we all have to make sure we clarify and remember and talk to people about, is that the real argument with all corporations is financial. It's all about math, although they have some issues with math and the reporting, that's a separate issue. The issue is we are getting views that they want, and they're going to create journalism that is fake news to convince people that are already on their side to agree with them, cutting everyone else out of the picture so they're having a one-sided argument, and then use their connections to try and legislate that reality.
Yep.